Bloomberg Audio Studios.
Podcasts, radio, news.
Single best idea to get you into Memorial Day weekend. What an eclectic group today. On a Friday before Memorial Day, we get people traveling into New York. It was great to see. We had someone come in from Geneva with Pictet. That was really, really informative on AI. I'm not sure I'm a believer in it, but she tried to convince me that I would be a believer in it. We had Joe Misek in, legendary at Bloomberg. He is retiring. Joe Misek, without question, of 2,300 reporters over 30 years, has been the one with the least hysteria. He has been a calming and professional voice within municipal bond research. And again, his comments there from everything from a minor league baseball financing of the Chicago Cubs out to what exactly happened in California in the great financial crisis. He was just brilliant as well. Let's get through this quickly, because I know in your podcast, you got 20-minute podcast. The Big Take, David Gura. Look for that out on Bloomberg Podcasts as well. Lawrence McDonald and his cohorts really try to look at some of the nuances that are out there. Here's Robbert van Batenburg of the Bear Trap Report on the view forward.
In play is international paper, right? Brazilian companies were looking to buy international paper. By the way, that's a testament of how slowly but surely foreign capital is buying the industrial heartland of America. But once they take over and absorb international paper, there's a slot opening up for another company to go into the S&P. Well, international paper has a 1.2% weight. So that's significant. If $35 trillion is following the S&P, that means $350 billion is going to go into that.
NVIDIA does a 10-for-1 stock split. Does that make it a Dow component? I mean, does Cisco go and NVIDIA goes into the Dow?
It could be. That's up for them. Yeah, I think it's a Dow component, and we'll have to see. I mean, they just made their Dow changes, so yes, I'm sure they're vying for it, but there are other companies that are vying for it as well.
Great conversation. It's, fascinating. Damien Cesar was fired up over that conversation. But, to think of NVIDIA 10-for-1 stock split and the idiocy of the Dow, that they would go into the Dow, maybe replace Cisco, I don't know. It's just absolutely fascinating. Can't say enough about Lawrence McDonald's book. He was way out front on the wall of money that's there. That's Robbert van Batenburg. Skylar Montgomery Koning is with T.S. Lombard. She writes brilliant notes. She's out of the University of St. Andrews, and she writes brilliant notes from T.S. Lombard. Look to them for those smart ideas. Here is Skylar Montgomery Koning.
For the dollar, in the short term, I'm still a bit cautious. We're seeing more growth convergence with global growth kind of catching up to U.S. growth. At the same time, the Fed has had an asymmetric reaction function where, because we know they don't want to hike, the market is looking for a reason to be dovish. At the same time, positioning, it's come off a bit, but it's still stretched along the dollar. However, I am more positive in the medium term. Growth is converging, but as I said, U.S. growth is still outperforming on an absolute basis. And the key point is that we still need to price policy divergence. Yes, the market is looking for the ECB to cut before the Fed, but over the next year and over the next 5 years, policy pricing is pretty identical. So I think you need to price in more dovishness in Europe and especially the UK, and that should be supportive for the dollar.
Skylar Montgomery Koning of T.S. Lombard there as well. We're going to keep this short into a holiday weekend. Again, we're on Apple CarPlay with some new improvements on Apple CarPlay. They've got a new update coming out where you can talk to your dashboard and turn the channel or turn Apple CarPlay to Bloomberg Surveillance. I mean, it's like, we dreamt about that 50 years ago. On Android Play as well. On YouTube, search Bloomberg Podcast. It's working. Subscribe to Bloomberg Podcast to get all of the different efforts that we have as well. And, of course, on Apple Podcasts, keeping it short today, this is Single Best Idea.